So unless you guys have been living under a rock, Elden Ring's first and only DLC, Shadow of the Erdtree, has been doing pretty well, to say the least. I mean, selling 5 million copies, and it's only been out for a couple of weeks. I'd call that a success. I think I personally would call that. Well, how about you, Lemon? Do you think that's a success right there?
5 million is a big number.
Yeah, it is.
It's a real big number.
It's pretty big. So regardless, though, it's been doing very well. And according to FromSoft, it's, that's only within the first week, which is pretty cool. So as noted here, though, the expansion DLC for Elden Ring was released last week to universal critical acclaim with 95 Metacritic score, making it the highest scoring DLC ever. And why do I get the feeling it's going to get nominated for Game of the Year and other rewards, even though it's a DLC and not a full game? I swear to God, it's going to happen. I just know it is. I know it is.
Do it. I'm penciling it in. I'm
expecting it. I'm 100% expecting it, but regardless, it's absolutely worth it. Our own LittleBobby has absolutely been enjoying the heck out of the DLC. If you haven't been seeing the guides and everything that we have over on our channel, go check the playlist out. It'll be down in the description below. You can check all that out. We've been going through exact details on how to defeat certain bosses, what builds to bring, and all I will simply say before we get into difficulty is use the stuff the game gives you. If you want to make it harder for yourself, that's up to you. That's your choice to do. But don't belittle people who use the things in the game that, even the developer himself has come out and said, I use the stuff in the game because I put it there and I'm going to use it. So that's just something right there. But regardless, it had amazing reviews from critics and everything. It sold 5 million copies in the first week. However, over on Steam, because that's the only place we can really see reviews or voice our opinions essentially, is the reviews over on Steam are mixed as of right now amidst difficulty and performance complaints. Now let's just go with performance complaints first, because this was actually something originally when the game launched way back, I say way back in quotations here, about 2 years ago, give or take, where the performance on PC was definitely not the greatest. There were a lot of people who would refund the game and wait to simply see when the game would get better performance over on PC. Even on high-end PCs, I know a lot of people said that it wasn't exactly the greatest, and that seems to have carried over into this, DLC, unfortunately. So that I absolutely 100% understand for simply leaving a negative review or saying, don't pick this up right now on PC. Your mileage may vary when it comes to the performance, absolutely 100%. The second part of it, though, however, is the difficulty, which I just want to say it first. It's Elden Ring. Any game from Software has always been difficult, but we knew Elden Ring was difficult, right? We've known this for a long time. So I almost feel like a lot of people would look at this and be like, yeah, I beat Elden Ring already. I've got my best build and everything. I'm going to steamroll through this, even though they literally came out when this DLC was announced and said, look, this is going to be a difficult DLC. You're not going to be able to just steamroll through everything, which clearly shows that people ignored those and did not read that type of stuff. And now they're complaining online that the game is too hard. And then you find out half the time that they're not either using the new stuff that is given to us, they're not trying to mix it up and change their builds or anything, and they are simply trying to throw whatever at the wall until it finally sticks. And it's not working out for them 9% of the time. So when I saw this, I honestly kind of just shook my head, because it shows that they're not willing to try new abilities, weapons, you name it, right? Because literally this DLC has had 100 plus, or maybe it's 70 plus unique weapons and new armors and all that kind of stuff, which is amazing for something like a DLC. And yet a lot of people are ignoring it. And because the big thing is always, when you release that type of stuff, it's like, how do you get people to actually try this stuff out and not simply stick to their tried and true build that they've, again, matured or used for a while and they left the game or anything like that? Well, yeah, basically make it useless against any of the DLC bosses and everything, and force them to try new things or mix it up when it comes to how they play the game and everything. It's definitely an interesting concept right there. But I want to get your thoughts and opinions right now, both chat, but also Lemon here is here with us right now, guys. Now, Lemon, I want to ask you, what are your personal thoughts when it comes to the mixed Steam reviews, both on the performance and the difficulty? I feel like I know what you're going to say about performance, but I'm still going to let you speak. And then let me know your thoughts about the difficulty. What are your overall thoughts on that?
All right, full disclosure, haven't started the DLC yet.
What? What the fuck?
Unicorn Overlord is not a short game, and I'm still burned through that, which is a good game. You should totally play it.
It is.
But I digress. For the performance issues, I think, any game no matter how big, small, whatever, needs to get called out for bad performance. I think that's just across the board. Don't care what the game is, call them out. If it's too egregious, rate it lower, right? Like the most recent Pokemon generation ran like ass. I enjoyed it, but it still ran like ass.
Right, and everyone called out for it.
And I've heard that, even on consoles, it doesn't run super duper well. I mean, I will say the Soulsborne games have, of the ones that came to PC, they ran really bad. They only had PC controls, keyboard and mouse. I like the original one, the Prepare to Die. I think that's what it's called, Prepare to Die edition. Didn't even support controllers when it came out. So I think Elden Ring and the Soulsborne, franchises have come a long way, but I'm glad that people are still calling out for its bad.
I'm pretty sure even some of the quote unquote like remasters and remakes of some of the other games that came to like the current gen consoles, even those had terrible performance and everything, or not terrible, but like you could definitely tell like this needed like another 6 months in the oven to really like hammer out some of these, performance complaints and everything. So yeah, like I said, absolutely 100% glad that it is getting called out. But what are your thoughts on the difficulty aspect of it?
Now for the difficulty part. So this is coming from someone who has never beaten a Soulsborne game until Elden Ring. So it should tell you that this game's at the very minimum more approachable than previous one.
And keep in mind, guys, he has beaten Elden Ring. He beat it way back when it came out and everything. He hasn't had time to do the DLC yet. So.
Yeah. And I actually turned on New Game Plus and I forgot how to play the game. So I have to relearn it.
Classic.
I think the biggest issue with this, and again, I'm just dropping the ball with the people I'm seeing this from. Someone in some social media brought up the idea that because Elden Ring was so popular, we are seeing a difference in the people playing the game. So you see like the Dark Souls 1 through 3, Demon Souls, that had a very devoted fan base, right? They're hardcore. They want to get their asses beat, and they want to figure out how to reverse it, kick ass and take names, right? That's kind of how these games go, and that's how the community likes it. They like, figuring out how to beat it.
You figure out how to beat it. You learn the moves of the enemy. You die a bunch of times, and then you finally take them down, right? That's that selfless accomplishment.
And that community is simultaneously very inviting, but also very gatekeeping. In the sense
protective,
of
essentially. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's almost some gatekeeping almost in a meme sense. The whole get good thing, It's the get good thing is usually the asshats in the community. In general, no one genuinely says that. It's more they want to help you out, but they also don't want to make the games easier, right?
Right.
So there's kind of mentality you have to get good, and so I feel like as the franchise, I keep saying, and when I say franchise, I mean Soulsborne's in general, specifically of the From Software variety. I'm not really talking Lords of the Fallen or anything, but just strictly within the From Software universe, for lack of a better phrase.
Right.
The games have gotten more and more and more popular. They've become better and better sellers. They keep showing up on Game of the Year lists and stuff, and so more and more quote unquote casuals, people who weren't there the whole time, are getting more involved. And I feel like there's a lot of people with real bad ego issues getting into these games, and they're getting their asses beat by the DLC for Elden Ring, because Elden Ring, and I'm guilty of this too, I had one build for a majority of the game. I just grind out levels. I had a single build, and it was a balanced build. So I think it was balance was the right name for it. So mix of dex and strength. And it was like a standard. I mean, I pretty much had to build the whole game, and I got all the way to the end of the game except for the very last boss, which I had a cheese build for, which was the Kamehameha build. Just shoot a giant beam, kill anything in front of you. Whereas with the DLC, again, full disclosure, I haven't played it yet, but just from what I've seen of the videos, and I love watching them, by the way. It's just so much fun watching people play bosses. You can't have that smooth brain mentality. You can't just immediately go into a boss and just raffle stomp it like you could in Elden Ring.
Right.
The base game, aside from a couple bosses. You can't have just one build. You have to kind of change your mentality a little bit. Right. And so I feel like that's kind of the problem. Is also levels are kind of thrown out the window too. You have to get the scatter tree fragments.
Yeah, the scatter tree fragments, and even for those people who are like our own LittleBobby, who is like +3 into the new game system and everything like that, it doesn't matter, right? Because they've even stated like as long as you got to, I think it's like level 150, give or take. Even if you're on New Game Plus 3 or New Game Plus 5 or whatever, there's no real big difference there, right? Like, you'll see some people in comments be like, you're New Game Plus 3, of course you can take this guy down and do all this. It's like, that stuff actually doesn't matter. It's all about using the stuff that the game has literally now provided you in this particular DLC. And again, the actual head developer came out and was like, look, use what we gave you. I use it. That's how you're going to be able to beat this stuff and everything like that. You want to go back in after you've beaten the DLC to try out new things, or you try to use an old build or something like that, by all means, go ahead. But 100% recommend that you should be trying to use different stuff. Get out of your comfort zone and try all this stuff and everything like that. And one of the big things, which Bobby here is saying even on our chat right now, because again, we're doing this while we're live, is he says, you don't get to complain about difficulty if you don't use summons and buffs. The DLC isn't hard except for the boar guy, lol. So part of this is you're seeing both sides of this all over online and everything like that, where you have one side of the community who's just like, no, you use summons, you use mimics, you use all this stuff. You didn't really beat that boss or anything, like the true hardcore, you go in with a sword and you beat him type of thing, essentially, right? And then you have the other side of it where they're just like, well, just use the summons and everything and you're good to go. If you're not using the summons, that's all on you and everything. Which I think when it comes to a particular game like this, look, the way I look at it is play however you want. That being said, though, if you're being stubborn to not try and mix things up, I don't care if you're not using summons or using a particular thing, that's all up to you. If you're gonna stand there and you literally do the exact same thing over and over again, not change one single thing, that is on you. Especially when the developer of the game himself will come out and be like, try these new things out. Your old builds are not gonna work the way you want them to in this particular DLC. Do they work that way in the base game? Sure, absolutely. Go cheese whoever you want, do this thing, you're good to go. But for the DLC, we made it explicitly like this, and that's what we're sticking with, essentially. Right? You've got to learn to break out of your comfort zone, try new things. I know it's scary, but it's worth it on the other side. So, but it is interesting when it comes to difficulty things, though, because lately, a few days ago, at the time of this recording, Elden Ring actually had an update which makes the expansion easier, and the patch addresses the complaints for some players about the DLC's difficulty. As noted here, we're not going to go through all the DLC or the patch changes or anything, but as noted here, the expansion includes a new leveling system called this, I'm probably butchering this, the Erdtree. I know I butchered that name. In-game items found around the world that are used to increase a character's abilities to deal and negate damage. Following complaints from some members of the community that the DLC is too difficult, Collaboration Update 1.12.2 revises the attack and damage negation curve scaling on the tree's blessings. Attack and damage negation abilities have been raised for the first half of the blessing enhancements. The second half is now more gradual, and the final level for the blessing enhancements have also been slightly increased. So again, you can go and check out the exact details right there and everything. But regardless, they have done that. Now, if you're someone who's already deep into the DLC and everything like that, I'm sure it's not really making that much of a difference already. My guess is that it would be near the beginning of the DLC. So, but again, this is, from software games. This is Elden Ring. These are difficult games. They've even said they are never going to put an easy mode into it because that's not the type of game they're making. I love this quote. A game made for everyone is a game made for no one. They want to make a difficult game. They are more than welcome to. And that is exactly what they've done. And no matter how much people complain online, they're not going to change that. So honestly, get over it. I'm sorry. I know that might be a little direct, but just get over it. If it's not for you, go play something else. There are millions of games out there.
The problem with the mentality that they want to make a difficult game, I think, is incorrect. I don't think FromSoft wants to make a difficult game.
They've come out and said that in direct quotes.
I don't think that is their goal. Their goal is not to make a difficult game. They want to make a game that doesn't hold your hand necessarily.
Right.
They want you to learn the systems and they want you to play the game that way. As someone who plays on bitch baby easy every chance he gets, I have finished Elden Ring. The game is not necessarily difficult. It just doesn't have patience for your BS. I think is the correct way of putting it. It's not a hard game. This isn't like a shoot 'em up kind of game. It's not like a bullet hell kind of game. Mm-hmm. Those are insanely difficult games. I think Elden Ring is a game that requires you to pay attention to it, and it's a game that requires you to learn its systems and kind of mesh with it. This isn't like, Assassin's Creed where you can not be stealthy at all, a la how I play it. Just walk up to people, just knifing everyone. Like, you have to play the game correctly. There is no leniency.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And one thing that Bobby even says in the chat right now is, you guys say that, but I use the same build for the whole DLC with the exception of your defensive spells. But Bobby, that also hits one thing right there. There are people who are trying to play this without using any kind of defensive spell, any kind of item that can help negate maybe some damage or any kind of resistance or anything like that, changing up weapons, you name it. If you find a build within the DLC that can work really well, whether part of it comes from the original game or you make a build within the DLC and everything, and you're using a combination of those tree upgrades and everything, then that's what you're supposed to be doing, right? But there are people who are just ignoring that completely and just literally trying to go in with a sword to, do that essentially. Yes, you can do exactly what you've been doing, and it's been working out really well for you, obviously, but you were at least trying to use certain things that the game has provided to you, change things up if you need to, because you even told me yourself that you did run into a boss that was giving you a bit of a headache, but I'm assuming you've obviously changed things up and everything, and it's worked out pretty well. There are people who are not doing that, and then they're getting frustrated that it's too hard, and it's just like, are you changing things up? Are you trying new things? I mean, heck, it doesn't have to be Elden Ring. I mean, it was back when when Final Fantasy VII Rebirth released and everything, there was a particular boss that we saw in a ton of our comments for the snake boss, which is technically the first boss of the game, and so many people are complaining about how difficult it was. And it's like, well, what are you doing for your build? I'm just going around slicing with Cloud's sword.
Yeah,
are you
that was definitely a skill check boss.
Are you using magic at all? Like, because it's literally weak to Blizzard, so throw a couple of Blizzards at it. No, not really. Okay, so maybe attach Blizzard, exploit its weakness type of thing. Are you switching between your characters? No, I'm just sticking on Cloud. Okay, maybe move between your two characters and everything. That might work out for you right there. So, it's kind of like that. It's that mentality right there. So.
I had to join because
I was going to say
Elden Ring.
He's going to come in. I knew he was going to come in for this. Go ahead, Bobby.
No, I like what you guys are saying. No, I was going to say, like, one of the things that a lot of people aren't understanding about the DLC and just Elden Ring as a whole is that, like you said, Talon, like, not using the systems is a detriment just to yourself. And if you want to make the game harder by doing that, that's on you. But I ain't got time for that shit. So when I do our guides, I'm going to show you my mega unga bunga 2 giant club spiked things that bleed everything that they touch. Doing that with a mimic with like 3 defensive spells and a bunch of talismans and eating a bunch of shit because I'm trying to kill that boss like in 2 tries. Like, I'm not trying to have this take all fucking day. I'm loving exploring, playing, like finding the little guys, venturing through the little areas, be it a tunnel or a big field or what have you. But if I'm trying to beat a boss, I don't want to be like the first time I did the Elden Beast. That shit took me like 6 hours.
Yeah, it's brutal.
And then I found it, like I was doing Millennia and it took me like 2 hours. And then I found some dude who was like, this build will just absolutely destroy Millennia. I went and got all the parts for it. And I was like, oh, this build doesn't destroy Millennia. It destroys everything. And that's what I use now. And it has, I've heard that it's not going to work for the last boss of the DLC.
I've heard the last boss is extremely difficult. I've heard extremely difficult.
But like I did Mesmer in like 3 tries. I did like all of like the boss after Mesmer. I forget what it's called. That was like 1 try because I don't sit there and waste time and go like, oh, I need to make sure I learn every parry and every dodge down to the frame timing. Like, I don't care.
And I think for something like that, though, like if you want to do that, and that's perfectly up to the player who wants to do that.
Oh, absolutely. If you want to do that, power to you. Like Chin right now is going through, and he was playing the Lion Dancer.
Oh yeah.
And he was on it for hours and hours. I was like, damn man, you're sweating. He's like, I'm trying, man. I'm trying,
right? And there are going to be builds in the future.
He's like, I'm going to do it.
And there are going to be builds in the future that people discover eventually, right? Because again, there's so many new weapons and all that kind of stuff in this DLC that someone's going to be like, wait a minute, if I just use this and this, it's not necessarily cheesing the boss or one hitting it, but it definitely makes it easier, or it makes it more around the level that I want it to, right? And so people are going to discover that overall. And it's like, DLC's only been out for like, what, a week at this point? So, you know, things will, you know, they're going to balance themselves out. But I think people just going and being like, it's too difficult. And then again, they're not doing anything new or trying new things. It's just like, well, you're going to be there a while then if you're going to do that. 6 hours, like you said your brother was doing, to try and, you know, learn every single move and parry and everything, which if you want to do, by all means. But if you're not trying to do that and it's frustrating you and you're not willing to change anything, then that's on you. That
yeah,
really
it's like imagine playing Halo on Legendary and like you're running through
with a pistol.
And you're like, well, I'm not picking up any enemy weapons because that's just like cheap. I'm not going to use my grenades because that's I don't know, that's weak, that's low skill.
You're gonna have a bad time.
It's like, yo, what the? Shut the fuck up! Like, what? What are you talking about, dude? Like, this shit is in the game for a reason. We had a comment like on one of the videos, it's like, you're a shithead if you so. I was like, shut the fuck up. I'm sorry. I try to be nice, but please shut the fuck up.
Was it actually a genuine comment, or was it just me?
It was
trolling?
no, not you, because I saw your comment. I was like, wait, that's Lemon. Okay, that's Lemon. He's being an asshole. No, this was some guy who's like, you're no skill. You're a shithead if you summon blah blah blah. I was like, dude, the game director says he uses this stuff. And he's like, who cares? He has his own play style. If you do it, and I'm like, what the fuck, dude?
That is
like
such backwards thinking right there. That is such backwards thinking.
That's some real head up your ass kind of mentality.
That is.
That's like
pull your head out of your own ass.
With 2 Pokemon out of 6. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
What? Why? Why are you gonna just arbitrarily impose these limits? That, I mean, cool. Like, it's cool if you do it, but like, you know, there's other games that you can play where you can use all the stuff and they're still really fucking hard.
Right.
You know, like, you don't have to impose this limit to make the game harder than it is when there are games that are that hard out. You know what I mean?
It's a very weird mentality, essentially.
Yeah, I'm almost 40, man. We got other shit to do. Like, I got other shit to play. Like, I'm actually loving it. And I'm like, you know, I was like, next year I'm going back for playthrough 4. I'm going to go do every single quest I can find and then do every quest in the DLC.
Yep, exactly.
Like, look up all of them to have like a fully completed file. Like, because I'm really enjoying it. But yeah, the difficulty thing, I like the first enemy that I found that was like not a tiny little like stupid mob enemy was kind of tough and killed me because I just wasn't expecting the super long combo chain.
Right, exactly.
But then after that, I adjusted and was like, okay, so I know this guy's gonna attack like 5 or 6 times in a row.
Back it up there a little bit. Back it up from the 5 attacks, and then jump in and finally get your counters on him.
Yeah, exactly. And so like once you adjust that, you're good. Like
I even saw comments on some of our like summon guides for, again, going back to Final Fantasy, because we did like 30 plus videos and all that stuff, right? And one of the harder summons in the game, I said, okay, look, you can bring whoever you want. I've seen videos about doing this, but I 1000% recommend this one particular character to at least be on your team and utilize some of these spells right here, right? They're not end game stuff or anything. They're spells you get within like the first half hour of the game. They're not broken, but they help you. And one of the comments in the video was like, nah, you can't do that. That's not real skill. I'm just like, oh, fine. Stuck at this guy then forever. It's up to you then. So,
I just don't care about people talking about like if you're playing a PvE game and they give you certain stuff to use, like I don't want to hear about real skill. That's just stupid, you know.
The game, guys. The game.
It's a video game. I'm trying to have fun.
To be more specific, it's a game. It's a part of the game they intentionally developed. This isn't a wall hack. This isn't a glitch. Yeah. It's part of the game. Yeah, so
they literally built it to be like
back
that.
Back it up. So. Try hard. Back it up.
Yes,
exactly.